Of all the photos I took while shooting this relay race to the Oregon coast, these stood out the most. Not just to me and the people in the photos, but to Twisted Tea as well. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris Hagen, a photographer and video producer in Portland, Oregon, and clearly we have a good time responsibly. My favorite event to shoot every year has become Hood to Coast, a relay race that starts at Mount Hood and ends at the Oregon coast. A group of some of my good friends run it every year, and I tag along taking photos and video and putting together a bit of social content. Last year was primarily video, shooting with the FX3. This year, photography was the focus, and I brought the Sony a7 IV, the Nikon Z8 that I have on loan from Nikon USA right now, and most important for the nighttime photos, this little flash from Godox. I think it's picking up in popularity, but if you don't know, it's the iT30 Pro, and they make it for Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fujifilm, Olympus, and Panasonic. The one I was sent to check out is the iT30 Pro S for Sony, so it rode on my a7 IV. I do also have their V100N Speedlight, which works on the Nikon hot shoe, which I'll talk about later. But one, for this event, I like to keep things compact, and two, I wanted to see what this little guy is capable of because that's one of the biggest benefits, ironically, its size. Clearly, small camera and lens packages are hot right now, but a lot of them don't come with a flash, and even if they do, there's still plenty of reason to add another one like this. For example, I'm a big fan of the flash on my Fujifilm X100 VI, but it's not without its flaws. I've found the recycle time to be slow and a bit inconsistent, and it certainly isn't going to give you consecutive flashes quickly. It also chews through battery. And then obviously, if your camera doesn't have a flash, like my a7 IV, it's a good looking option that doesn't add much weight. Now, with cameras, size usually means a sacrifice to battery, but that's not the case here with the iT30 Pro. Godox says it gets 560 full power flashes on one charge. I didn't test that exactly, but I can tell you that I've never been in danger of it running out of battery. I don't think I've ever seen it drop a battery bar in my use case, which includes shooting this race overnight and using it as part of a 2-light setup shooting some running portraits. More on that in a second. Even if you did get into low battery territory, it recharges quickly via USB-C, as does the V100N flash battery, as do my spare camera batteries from Lano. My point is, with just about everything these days running on USB-C batteries of some sort, there are lots of ways to charge this flash on the go if you need to. Besides that, the design is straightforward, functional, and easy to use. The dial on the top can be used to navigate menus or adjust the flash power if you're shooting in manual. You've also got a touch screen that's responsive and accurate and really helpful to use. Next to it, there are 3 buttons along the back: set, menu, and power. And on the side, there's a switch for wide or narrow. Wide giving you a more spread out and diffused flash with a built-in diffuser, and narrow providing a more focused light toward a subject that may be a little bit further away. So you can use this flash in TTL mode. It's super simple if you just want to pick it up and put it on the camera and go. When I first used it, I actually just took it out of the box, put it on my a7 IV, turned it on, and bang. This was one of the first photos without giving a second thought to settings. However, you'll have a lot more control of your image shooting manual, and that's typically what I do, especially when I'm shooting events or things like I did in this video. To give you a bit more context about the race I shot, for the running and more of the action shots, of course, I was using the Nikon Z8. It's just so fast and shoots at much faster speeds than the a7 IV. But for the collection of, let's call them Twisted Tea portraits, I went direct flash. And that's where you can see a bit of the power that the iT30 Pro has. It had no problem overpowering the daylight and giving me the look I was going for. Still, the night runs were where it really shined. The way the race works, you have 2 vans of 6 runners that each run a leg, and the vans alternate. So our van had 6 runners each with a leg of anywhere from 4 to 7-ish miles from about 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then our van rested and drove ahead to the next big exchange where the next set of legs begins. And this time they were running from about 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. So all of these were taken with the a7 IV and iT30 Pro. And I thought they came out really well despite my user error. See, remember that wide and narrow switch? Well, I forgot to set it to narrow for running shots, so the light wasn't as direct as it could have been. Still, it was more than enough power to get the job done in the dark and create this gem that wound up getting picked up by Twisted Tea on Instagram. So it can clearly handle a lot in terms of lighting your scene as the key light. But what actually makes this worth picking up, in my opinion, and reminder, I'm not getting paid to say any of this, it just makes sense, is the fact that the iT30 Pro can act as a master and or receiver as well and work alongside other Godox flashes. Let's do a quick price comparison. A Godox X Pro trigger will run you $70. The X3 with the touchscreen is $90, but the iT30 Pro, which gives you that functionality plus serving as a flash itself, is $75. So if you are in the market for a flash system, the iT30 Pro is a pretty good value. And again, it's very capable. I'm a big fan of direct flash in sports. I think a lot of brands and campaigns are going with that look right now, especially within running. So I wanted to try it myself with more of an analog feel. My setup was the iT30 Pro paired with the V100 to make a few running portraits for a New York Marathon fundraising post. I set up at dusk with the A7 IV and 20mm f1.8 G lens and went to work. The lighting setup, super simple, with the V100 as the key light, and I used the iT30 Pro on the camera as a fill. It took a bit of trial and error and timing trying to land the correct foot in the correct place to get the shots we wanted, but I really like what we came out with. I chose not to go high-speed sync with the flash, and I know that meant I wasn't going to totally freeze the runner, but I also still wanted to show a bit of that motion. And then for a few shots, I went down to about 1/15 of a second on the shutter speed to show all the motion, and those were pretty sick too. I wanted to fill the frame as much as I could, but also leave a little bit of space so there was room for any graphics that needed to be added after the fact. The V100, which is a beast of a speed light, was far from at full power and giving me everything I needed. Godox rates it for 70 full power consecutive flashes, which is pretty nuts. Just like the iT30 Pro, I'm yet to make a real dent in this battery shooting shorter events like 2 or 3 hours of frequent flashing, and you've got a touchscreen for easy handling and changing settings, again, just like the iT30 Pro. Overall, the V100 feels like it is zero compromise, especially if you're a Sony shooter using the A9 Mark III, for example. It can sync with that global shutter as fast as 1/80,000th of a second. The only con I can think of, Godox actually has a fix for it. You may have noticed that some of the shots from hood to coast were a little bit off with how the light spread across the image. That was because of the lens I was rocking, a 24-70 on the A7 IV, a lens that I actually no longer have, so I'll show you what I mean on the A7 IV, but with my 35mm GM instead. From where the light sits on top of the camera, the lens, if it's too big, is going to block the light from reaching close-up subjects. The same thing happens with the Fujifilm X100VI native flash if you have a lens hood on. The fix is Godox's TTL hot shoe riser. It'll put the flash a little bit higher and help get the light away from the lens and more evenly spread out across your image. What I did to solve the problem without the riser during hood to coast was instead shooting all of these close-ups at 24mm. With my camera in a portrait, vertical orientation, I stepped back and framed the subject on the side of the lens where the flash was. That way, the light hitting the subject wasn't blocked. Then I'd just crop in and reframe how I needed to. For tighter shots, same thing, I just stepped back a little bit further and zoomed in to about 50 or 70mm. So, safe to say, I'll be picking up the riser sooner than later. The other thing to know is the screen locking issue. You can lock the screen once you've dialed in your settings. It's a good way to keep those settings from getting changed by mistake if the screen gets bumped. You unlock it by holding the back of the screen for 2 seconds. The problem is if you're shooting with your eye to the viewfinder and your forehead touches the touchscreen on the flash, you'll unlock it and probably change a few settings without even knowing. Fortunately, Godox listened and released firmware to change the locking function. But if you have issues updating, it does sound like you need to use the Godox cable that came with your flash to install the update. Just thought you should know, and I'm pretty sure there are videos on YouTube explaining this a little bit better. Otherwise, yeah, this thing is awesome. and small. And it's cheap enough that for me, someone who foolishly shoots on 3 camera systems right now, Nikon, Sony, and Fujifilm, it's probably worth picking up one for each camera and keeping them ready to go in my bag or pocket. And honestly, knowing that the flash was one of the main reasons I bought the X100 VI, it's cool to have a pocket-sized flash that I can also use on my full-frame cameras. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I'm trying to get more behind-the-scenes video during some of these shoots. I'm terrible at remembering to do it and wanting to take the time to do it, but it is worth it for videos like this. So if you have any strategy or gear that you like to use for BTS stuff, I'd love to hear it. I'm thinking about some Ray-Ban Meta glasses, but we'll see. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you again soon.